All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. My name is Sam Anderson, and I am so thrilled that you could be here with us tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk a lot about the summer, sort of planning for it. We're going to sort of focus on three areas: why to plan for it, what to plan for it, and how to plan for the summer, and why it's important, or particular activities and items of particular focus to be looking at. My name is Sam Anderson. Again, I am the Northeast Regional Teacher Trainer for C2 Education. I've been with C2 for a very long time, started out as a teacher, helping a lot of students over the summer, prepare for next year's classes, help them prep for their SATs, ACTs, getting them through the college application process, really all the things that students, especially high school students, a lot of times they need help with, especially in the summer is often a really great time to sort of get ahead with that. Now, anytime throughout tonight's webinar, feel free to pop any questions if you go to the Q&A pod on the side of your screen. Enter in your question in the chat box there, hit enter. At some point in time at the end of the webinar, I will take some time to answer as many questions as I can before we are done. But feel free to submit them at any point of time throughout the webinar, and I will answer as many of them as I can at the end. So again, thank you all for coming tonight, and we'll start talking about why we need to plan our summers. So really, when we're sort of looking today, we're going to again look at three things, right? Why should we be focusing on the summer? What's so important about using the summer? What are the benefits of sort of having a summer planned, and with academics, with activities, as well as with fun and enjoying times? What should be planned for the summer? We'll sort of talk through four particular areas of importance to plan. And again, sort of like how to go about planning, sort of putting the whys and the whats together. And then again, at the end, we'll sort of take some time and I'll answer as many questions as I can. So why should we plan during the summer? Now, first of all, the summer is very, very important, primarily because there's no school. You gain all this extra time over the summer that you don't have. You're not going to school 6 to 8 or possibly more hours of the day. There's no homework, there's no quizzes or tests or really anything else to sort of take your time and distraction away from some longer term goals and some longer term plans. So you really want to make sure you take as much advantage of that extra time as possible. And many studies have shown that summers for most people is two and a half months of sometimes sort of mental stagnation, right? Brain drain, as it's sort of colloquially called. Most of the time, you're losing math. You're losing, the skills of math. You're losing skills in reading and writing and in science. It actually, while I was teaching, it was one of the things that drove me most insane was just how much things were forgotten at any, sort of elapsement of time that happened between when it was learned to when it needed to be recalled. And so you want to make sure that you're staying fresh and staying active throughout the summer mentally, as well as possibly physically. Now, obviously this can sort of be avoided by making sure that you're planning, academic, courses or test prep. But not only that, right? Non-academic topics, things that are enjoyable and that are fun, which are just as important as academic things, right? Mental health is so much more, and academic health is so much more than just your knowledge. Mental health is part of it, and part of mental health is making sure that you rest your brain as much as you're giving it exercise. So we're going to talk about all of those tonight. Now, why should you plan, right? What is the importance of planning? Well, the biggest reason is that college admissions is getting more and more competitive every year. The number of students that are applying to college is just going up. The admissions rates are going down because there are more people who are applying and the same number of people who are getting in. So if you have more and the same number get in, obviously the percentage is going to be lower. Now, when you're sort of applying, right, the major factors that almost all schools, and there's plenty of studies, there's plenty of surveys that show this, are your overall GPA. What is your GPA on a 4.0, 5.0 scale? The rigor of your coursework and your GPA in the most rigorous courses, right? Your APs, your IBs, your honors, your SAT and ACT score, and of course, your college essay, that first sort of look at who you are as a person and not just a series of numbers. Now, because so many schools, so many, top schools, they get so many profiles with very large numbers that they take a much more holistic approach when looking at the students. Now, what is a holistic approach? A holistic, as this director of admissions sort of says, is much more than just sort of saying, oh, we have a 4.0 with a perfect 1600 or perfect 36 on the ACT. It's a lot more. It's looking at who you are, what you're interested in, what drives you, sort of looking at the student as a whole, the background, the character, the accomplishments, and what your potential is when you get into college. So when you're planning, right? Why, okay, holistic, great, lovely. It's a nice little, it's almost a buzzword, right? The quote just said it wasn't, and it completely isn't, because, there's, out of what, 1,600 students got into Harvard, right? So many of them had, such high academics. There's probably more people who applied with really strong academics than got in with those same academics. And so there had to be something else that drew them or drew the admissions officer to a particular student. Now, obviously your GPA, right? That is, again, still the most important. So it's, again, the summer is a perfect time to make sure that you are starting as strong as possible, right? Making sure you're reviewing previous years, as well as, maybe catching up on those subjects and those topics that weren't your strongest, but also to get ahead, right? To start the next year hitting the ground running, to make sure that when the next year starts, that you are as prepared and as ready to go, so you can start the year with as strong a GPA as you possibly can. And that's really critical. Now, of course, the other part, usually like, third on the list, right? Your SATs, your ACTs. Again, during the summer, you don't have homework, you don't have tests or quizzes. And so it's a perfect time to sort of use that time to sort of prepare and take some of these tests, prepare for the SAT, prepare for the ACT, because you have the time, you have 4 hours to sit down, take full length practice tests that you might not have on a weekday during the school year, right? You don't really have 3 hours on a Thursday night to do a full length practice test. You have homework, you have practice, you have tests to study for. But during the summer, you have more time. It's a perfect time to take those practice tests and sort of get ready and get caught up and get set for some of the other areas of your application that are not just related to school. And this also includes, again, some of the other areas of your holistic profile, your activities, your interests. Summer's a great time to take the next step in your activity, to go to summer camps, to go to more intensive programs, to start projects. And we'll talk a lot more about all those throughout the rest of this presentation. But it's also a great time to maybe, try something new, to see if there's, something you like, a subject, an activity, any, thing that you haven't tried before. The summer is a great time to like get into it and to expand your horizons and try something new. But, it's also a great time to sort of see what you've done in the past and, maybe start planning for those college essays, start planning for, what your actual college experience is going to be like, your, research, your essays, your application, all that kind of stuff. All of that is great things to do during the summertime. Now, why do we want to start now, right? Right? Why do we want to start at this point of time in the year? Why do we want to start, so early on, right? Summer's still months away, right? Why should we do it now? Well, there's a lot of stuff to plan for, right? It's 2.5 months now, or 2 months, depending on where you live. Now, depending on, sort of the seasons, depending on what you want to do with your time, there's a lot of stuff that you can potentially plan for, right? Now, the earlier that you start that planning, the earlier that you begin the planning process, the much easier it is to make sure that you're able to sort of have that relaxation, that, summer vacation, that, trip, to another country that you really want to, or just, to hang out with your friends, to go to the mall, or have a great day chilling, whatever it is that you want to do. The earlier you plan, the more likely it is that you'll be able to do all of those things. And, one of the real reasons to really start planning now is that timing is so important. There are a lot of things, especially if you're planning on a summer camp or an enrichment program or anything that is outside of, a course, anything that, in a sense you have to apply for, they have deadlines. And sometimes those deadlines are very early on. Sometimes they have testing requirements. Certain programs require an SAT or an ACT or some other form of test. And so making sure that you're able to fit all of that in and you're not waiting to the last minute to apply, because you might have certain prerequisites that need to be covered. If you're going to look for a job or an internship over the summer, that does take time, right? Job searching, internship searching is not a quick process. It takes time. It takes, resumes. It takes, effort, application times, interviews, that all takes time. And so the earlier you start that with, the more time you have and the more sort of knowledge you'll go into the summer knowing, so you'll have the time for that fun and relaxation. And, sometimes, right, there are those dates that are set in stone. Maybe your school's, has like set summer, camp for like your sport, right? Maybe you're really into, soccer or, basketball or tennis or something, that, and your school requires you to, be at practice on certain days, right? So you might need to sort of plan those, or maybe you're going to do a competition of some kind and that's on a particular day, or, maybe your, cousin's wedding is sometime during the summer and you have to make sure you're there for that. So the earlier you plan, especially if it involves travel, the better it's going to be, right? The earlier you plan overall, it's going to be better, but especially if you want to travel places, if you want to go visit, go to, we're going to do summer programs in another state or another country. The earlier you plan the travel, the earlier you book your ticket. Usually the easier it is, the more seats available, as well as usually it's noticeably cheaper. For the parents out there, obviously that is a big draw for why you want to plan right now. Because it's cheaper, it's easier usually to get that plan. Now, that's all the reasons why we want to plan. Now, what do we want to plan? What are the particular areas that we want to sort of think about when we're doing our planning? We're really going to look at 4 particular areas. And we sort of talked a bit about all those today, right? Academics, right? Again, getting that sort of preview of the next year, your SAT, ACT, any academic programs, but also, again, extracurricular, your passions, volunteering, jobs, internships. It's also, again, summer's a great time to sort of look at the beginning of your college admissions process. Whether you are a rising senior or even a rising junior or sophomore, it's a good time to get started. You have the time. And of course, you want to make sure, again, you have just as much, you have a relaxation. Your brain is refreshed and relaxed as much as it is active and working. And so you want to make sure you're building in some fun and some areas that you can sort of enjoy your summer. So let's start talking about academics. Usually, again, since GPA is in many ways the most important aspect when it comes to college admissions, the first thing you always want to make sure you're looking at is your academics and your schoolwork, right? Summer is a great time to make sure you're reviewing old materials, especially in topics like math, which often build on previous topics, right? If you have pre-calculus, that often builds on algebra 2, algebra 1, a little geometry. If you have calculus, you need your pre-calculus. If you have geometry, there's still algebra in that. If you have algebra 2, you need to review algebra 1. For some people, that's 2 years ago. That's a long time. So you want to make sure that you take that time, use those to sort of review. Brush up, right? Especially if you're maybe going into, a high-level class, an AP or an IB, especially a lot of times those have like prerequisites that you have to take the honors version. You have to have taken like a full year course on it before you get into the APs. Make sure you review some of the old material. And, of course, make sure that you're sort of brushing up any topics in the previous year that you did struggle with, that you are, because you want to make sure that you're going into the year as fresh and sort of in as strong a position as you possibly can. And, again, sort of take a look at what's, coming up. A lot of times, some teachers, especially if it's a long-term teacher, they've been there a while, they will often, have syllabi on like a website, or they'll, you can ask old students that have had them. They tend to sort of use the same syllabi. They tend to follow curriculum in the same order. And so you can usually preview a bit of what's coming up. A lot of subjects, right, they sort of start in a certain location, right? For instance, I know around me, history was always one that it was always done over 2 years. So there's history 1 and then there was history 2, which, meant that, this was for US history, which meant that not only was it a review topic, but based on where it ended, we knew what was going to come up next at the beginning of US history 2. So make sure that you're setting yourself up, previewing what's coming up, and especially if you have an AP or an IB, you want to make sure you hit the ground running, because colleges want to see you doing well, especially if you're a senior, right? They're going to get your first quarter or your first semester's grade if you're a senior. So you want to make sure those first quarter and those first semester grades are as strong as possible. And, especially if you're an AP and IB, and even a lot of honors classes nowadays, right? A lot of classes in general, they're assigning summer work, right? Books, summer reading, classic example. make sure you're getting started. Don't wait until 2 weeks before to start reading all the books that you had assigned. Start early. Start early on your summer assignments. Start early on, summer projects or summer reading. Make sure you're sort of spreading it out through the entirety of the summer, and so you're not doing so much at one time, and you can build in that fun, that relaxation, but you are still being productive and getting stuff done. Now, beyond your sort of academics, right? Again, summer is a phenomenal time to sort of do test prep, right? It's a perfect time to either start test prep if you haven't done it, or to sort of intensify and do summer boot camps or do summer programs that are geared for SAT, ACT, right? Because, they're, especially now, right? Recently, both ACT and College Board announced summer testing dates, right? The ACT, there's one in July, there's one in September, right? Early on in the school year. The SAT, there's one in August, right at the end of August. So you have the entirety of the summer to sort of get ready for that. Now, it's also really important to know that the August SAT is a very popular option, so it fills up fast. So if you're planning on taking it, you want to make sure you're planned for that early because registration is going to fill up fast. And so you want to make sure that you have the time and ability to prep for it, register for it, and be able to take it before it all fills up. And it's also a great time to sort of study for the subject test. If you just finished a course in school, you can use the summer to sort of brush up, strengthen it, strengthen the topic, strengthen the material, learn anything that was left out of the curriculum that's needed for those subject tests. Those SAT subject tests were drawn on particular subjects, and many of the top schools either require or recommend, which is really college talk for require because everyone else will be doing it. So it's a great time to sort of study and prepare for those. And again, there are a lot of options for how to do this, right? There's boot camps, there's, summer programs, there's, sometimes school courses, any of those kind of things often give, or, you can self-study as well. Now, along those lines, right? Along the lines of summer boot camps or summer things, right? Other option, summer classes. Colleges, right? Colleges love when you show passion about education. At the end of the day, colleges are educational institutions, and they love people who love learning. And so, it's always looked really good if you're able to sort of show them that you're into learning and that you're trying to pursue topics or concepts that you're interested in, as well as any educational pursuits that you find intriguing or exciting. Now, obviously, there are a lot of options for this. Sometimes a lot of schools, high schools, offer summer classes. This, is a great way, especially if you want to get into maybe an AP, to sort of place out of a course. And allow you to get into something like an AP or an IB, or just jump ahead on that math track, especially with the SAT and the changes to that required a deeper track of math. Taking those summer courses can allow you to sort of get ahead and have a stronger course rigor, which again is something colleges all want to see. Now, right? A lot of times also local colleges, sometimes in partnership with high schools, offer high school students, right, to have the college experience, to take classes out of school during the summer alongside college students, or sometimes specifically just for high schools, but they're college level classes. That's great. It tells you what college is like, and a lot of times you can get credit for it, right? And again, progress in high school or get college credit, right? Get some credits that when you go into high school, makes graduation just a little easier. Plus, again, most importantly, you're getting a sense of what college is going to be like, what college classes are going to be like, what that rigor is like, so you can sort of go into the school knowing this is the bar I need to aim for. Now, one other thing that often happens, there are some high schools and some colleges that allow credit by examination. The CLEP, CLEP is a classic example of a test that is like this. So you can prepare for a test, take the test, and then get credit either for high school or, if you're going into college, you can bypass certain course requirements or get credit for college through these exams. And so it's a great time to study for it, a great time to sort of plan to take them, either through your local high school, local college, or a local testing center. These are all possible options to sort of use to really strengthen and advance your academic profile. And lots of courses, enrichment programs. Programs like the Johns Hopkins CTY, the Stanford, Dukes, right? A lot of colleges offer these sort of young gifted programs, or just sort of, these enrichment programs that allow you to, live on a college campus. I myself did CTY when I was very young. So a lot, you live on a college campus, you get a sense of what it was like to be in a college campus, going to, different classes, cafeteria, make friends, from people from, across possibly the different, the country, sometimes international, right? And it's a great way to sort of have fun, immerse yourself in the college. And again, it looks phenomenal on a college resume, college application. But the thing with these is a lot of these applications start early. They start in the fall, in the summer beforehand. Early on in the year, a lot of these applications start, and a lot of them are first come, first serve. So you do want to make sure you apply early. Right? The deadline is a deadline. It is not a we're going to look at it then. A lot of them have a form of rolling admissions where it's a first come, first serve. So again, if you're interested in one of these, make sure you apply as early as possible. Get all the prereqs out. The CTY, for instance, you do need to take a test. If you're a high school student, it would have to be an SAT, ACT. Younger student, there are other options like the SCAT test, etc. But you need to take those. You need to make sure you have those done before you apply, and those courses do fill up over the summer. So the later you take it, the less choice you will have. So make sure you're applying early. Make sure you're preparing for this as early as possible. Now, that's all your academics. Extracurriculars, right? The other things that you can be doing. Now, you want to make sure, again, that you're pursuing your passion. Now, there's a lot of times, right, that this can be discovering a new interest, taking a look at what you love, and, maybe taking it to the next level. Now, there's a lot of ways that we can do this. We're going to sort of look at jobs, internships, volunteering, community service, right? And then, the sort of, activities portion, sports, activities, personal passion products, and traveling, right? And that could be to pursue a passion. That could be to have a great story to use on your college essay, making sure that you're pursuing something that you're passionate or interested in. Now, jobs and internships are a great way to sort of obviously gain experience, especially if you're into a particular area. A lot of schools, especially if you're trying to apply to something specialized, want to see some form of engagement with the field itself. If you want to be a doctor, volunteering at a hospital or anything along those lines, or, working, as an EMT driver once you get your license, etc. I've had a lot of students who have done things along those lines to demonstrate that that they're committed, that they're interested in a particular field. Now, having a job is great. If you can get a job, which is hard, it shows a lot of great things to a college, regardless of what the job is, even if it's just getting people coffee, right? It shows people that someone trusts you, that you can be responsible for something. And responsibility, especially when you're at college and away from your parents, and you're required for setting your own schedule, getting to your classes, doing your work on time, responsibility is key. And, the job doesn't have to be related. There are skills to be gained in any profession, in any field, in any particular job that you take. And, sometimes the reasons why you need to hold a job are just as important regardless, whether it's for personal, whether it's for family reasons, whether it's, whatever the reason is, that is just as important as to show that you care about something. Doesn't matter why you have a job, you're still being responsible. And again, regardless, that is a great trait to show colleges. Now, internships. Internships are one of the best ways to get a sense of a field of interest, right? To sort of step into the world of, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What is it like? Most internships, many, are unpaid, depending on, again, usually it's based on the laws, not so much the internship. There are some, laws, some states that have laws that, either do not allow paid labor at a certain age, or, require it, depending on what the situation is. But that shouldn't matter. That shouldn't be why you do or do not do an internship, right? It's more about the experience, about expressing that interest, about getting a sense, and again, showing your passion, showing your desire to do something. Now, searching, right? The hardest part of jobs and internships, actually doing the searching. Now, there's a lot of things to do, but the most important is to start doing it now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Maybe wait till tomorrow. It's late some places. Don't wait until, May, if that's when school ends. Don't wait until April. Start soon. All right, it's not going to happen immediately. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. You're going to have to create a resume, which also takes time. It takes effort, requires proofreading, many people to proofread. Make sure you get many people to proofread your resume. Practice your interviews. Practice it with adults, your family, any, possibly older siblings or cousins or aunts or uncles or, close family friends, anybody who has, either been in a job interview or interviewed people for a job. Right? Those are great people to talk to and practice your interview skills, have them review your resume. right? But make sure you start as soon as possible, if not this weekend. As soon as conceivably possible, you want to start. Right? Now, there are some internships that target specifically high school students. Those ones you want to make sure you start looking locally. There are a lot of programs. There are a lot of sort of, especially if you have at certain, especially more national companies often have sort of programs, national programs that are geared towards high school students in local areas. That is a great place to look if you have, something nearby in the local area that offers those. Take a look. Otherwise, take a look at private or public organizations, colleges, libraries. Libraries would be more volunteering. We'll talk about that in a bit. Right, but look at local areas, look at local organizations, whether they are publicly or privately owned, law firms, etc. If you're interested in that or anything along those lines, but make sure you're sort of looking at all the options around you. And, if you need to, ask around, ask your school counselors. A lot of times school counselors, they get internship, especially if it's for programs that target high school students. A lot of those programs will send information to high school guidance counselors. Ask them. Check your parents. Check your parents or your friends. Check your, aunts, uncles, cousins, anybody who, might be a connection that you can use. Ask. Nothing will ever come if you just wait. You have to be active. You have to sort of cast your net as wide as possible. Now, if you're, struggling or there's, you went to your guidance counselor, they didn't have anything, there are options on the internet. Those are some two right up here, internshipprograms.com and idealist.org. That is your, those are some good possibilities for places that you can start your search if, you've exhausted all the other options. But ask around, usually ones that are local or ones that you can get a recommendation from someone who either knows you or is connected to you will often make your chances a little bit better. So start there and then go to the internet. Now, volunteering, a lot of great things. Really important to make sure you're contributing, obviously, just to your local community, but that's really what it's about. It's really not about sort of the, a lot of times they say volunteering or outreach, community outreach, and it's like, oh, I have to go build, houses in third world countries, or, where we sort of think of those big, macro, huge projects or organizations. That doesn't have to be it. It could be helping someplace local, volunteering at your library, helping a nonprofit, helping your local animal shelter, working with a local park. There are plenty of ways to make a difference, and that's really what it's about. It's all about making a difference in your community, not about the prestigiousness of your volunteer opportunity. It's about the intent behind it, not the accolade that the opportunity creates or, the recognition that that organization can receive. So you want to make sure that you can show them that you're serious about helping, about sort of serving, people, the local community, etc. Make sure you're volunteering not just during the summer, but also keep it up during the school year. It doesn't have to be as frequently. Obviously, colleges are well aware that you do not have as much time, but keep it up. And it's not just about the number of hours, right? The hours are important, but it's not just about them, right? 25 hours that you put a lot more effort into, and you maybe have some recommendations from those locations or anything like that that show that you really put a lot more effort, is worth a lot more than 100 hours at a place that nobody really knew you, you didn't really interact, you just sort of went in, did your stuff, whatever you were told to, and left, right? It's about what effort, how much focus and effort and you put into the process and procedure, not just about how long you spent doing it. So, but again, try to connect this as much as you can to your interest. Again, if you are, interested in being a doctor, right? Volunteer at a hospital. If you are interested in, going to law, volunteer at a local law firm. If you're interested in, government politics, find your local chamber of commerce or anything along those lines that you can use to sort of maybe connect to some interest that you have. And that's always a great thing, because there are a lot of ways to find these, right? There are so many volunteer options out there. Check again, a lot of times your guidance counselor will know stuff. A lot of times there will be things on your local government website, wherever it is. There will be, usually, job boards posting. There's a lot of stuff about volunteering community service on them. Or again, just, look up your local nonprofits. Find something there that, you're interested in and call and ask. And again, if you've exhausted all that, you can always go online, Idealist, Points of Light, Do Something, National Service, which is a governmental website. All of those are great options to go once again you've exhausted some of the more local ones. Now, besides, right, we've sort of talked about jobs, internships, volunteering, the sort of big ones that we're not always in love with. Pursuing our passions is just as important. Making sure that, right, again, colleges, they're looking at the holistic approach. They're looking at the student as a whole. Your interest, your passions is a large part of who you are. There's something that colleges want to see. They want to see that you're passionate about something, that you're dedicated to something. And so if you're really into music or art or a sport, continue it over the summer. Go to practice, go to competitions, performances, recitals, sports, music camps, art camps. All of that is just as great as volunteering, as jobs or internships or all that, right? It still shows who you are. Now, it's again about balancing, it's again about planning, but pursuing your passions is just as important. And again, of course, a lot of times it's fun. It invigorates us. It makes us, the time fly and us happier. But this could also be not just, again, sort of programs and camps. It can also be a personal project. Are you, if you're big into computer science, maybe summer's a great time to sort of work and try creating an app. Or, if you're, into engineering, work on a car, work on a project. Or, if you're a writer, write books. Or, go, study things, at local libraries and universities, or travel places, right? Travel is great. And this could just be, again, if you're interested in, physics, right? Maybe you could travel to some place with a great, physics lab or a great research opportunity. That doesn't have to be to the Stern Institute, right? That it doesn't have to be that far that way. It could be a local college, right? Maybe there's a research facility at a local college or a local community college that you talk to some of the professors that are there, right? Something simple, easy, but it requires you to get out of your house, right? That's still traveling. And that's just as important as, those big trips abroad to again, like the CERN Institute, or, I would read college essays about someone who volunteered at the Ministry of Finance in Mumbai, things like, right? The little stuff is just as important as all that. Going to a local college or local, research or business, and sort of talking to an expert, talking to somebody and picking their brain, doing an interview with them that you can learn a lot about is just as important as any of the big stuff as well. Now, those are sort of really, really in many ways the two biggest areas of your summer plan. But all of this, everything we've talked about before, leads up to the college application process, the college admissions process. So you always want to sort of keep those in mind as you're going through this. Now, for rising seniors, this is quite literal. Make sure during the summer you're researching, you're finalizing your college list. What colleges are you applying to? You want to have that list locked down, ready to go by the beginning of summer. You want to make sure that you're visiting all the colleges, especially if they're high up on your list. Any college that you're like, I really want to go to, you should visit. You can loop it in with some of those other ones. Loop it in. Hey, coming back from a program, remember you're going to pass by a college. I know that's what I did during one of my summers. I was doing a program, and instead of taking a straight line, we sort of took a little detour and visited some local colleges that I was interested in. Visit your colleges. Make sure that you see what they're like. Identify again what those important dates, right? Early decision. If you're a rising senior and you haven't taken SAT, ACT, August SAT is really important. Any of those particular dates. Start working on your college essays. It's really actually critical to start working on them soon. Usually a lot of times May, June is a great time to start your college application, so you can ramp it up over the summer and have, good first draft or even final draft done by the time school starts, so you don't have to spend as much time and effort on it during school. And start your applications. Most of the college Common App, opens relatively early. The essays are the same from last year. And so, you could start on your application during the summer. Whether it be filling it in, whether it being, just sort of, making sure you have all the information and you're not leaving any questions, taking a look at your supplements, getting your recommendations, any of those kind of things can sort of fall into getting ready for your application. Now, for those of you who are not rising seniors, there's still stuff you can do. One, research colleges, right? It's always good, especially if you're going into your junior or even your sophomore year, to have an idea of what you're aiming for. Have that goal. I want to get into Stanford. I want to get into Carnegie Mellon. I want to get into the University of Chicago or Harvard or Yale or whatever the college is that you want to get to. Research colleges that have strong programs and things you like. There are a lot of options out there. College Data, College Board Big Future, a lot of places that you can sort of go to do a little research. Of course, you can always visit colleges. You can always take a look at the colleges, see what it's like. Build your college roadmap, especially if you're, the younger you are, the more important that is. Are you on track? When are your test dates? What are your course selections? How are you starting to sort of find your way to create your college profile so that colleges will love who you are and what you've done? And begin practicing your college essays. Start writing those essays, start thinking, brainstorming ideas, right? It's never too early, especially because, right, so much stuff happens to us over the years that sometimes it relatively, interesting or, unique events that happen to us earlier on in our life, by the time we get to a senior year, we've sort of forgotten about them, right? Maybe the memory's a little fuzzier. Jot them down, right? Start keeping like a diary of, these are some good college essay ideas. These are some things that have happened to me that I could write about, right? So you can remember them when it comes time to write those college essays. Now, one of the things I've talked about for both of them is obviously making sure you visit colleges, because the idea is really want to make sure you bring the college to life beyond whatever information they're sending you. Get a chance to walk on the campus, right? A lot of times, actually, that's a lot of times people make their college decision often by like, I loved this college. I went there and I just had a great experience. I know that's how I made my decision. I went to my college. I went to Sarah Lawrence College. I made my decision based entirely on what happened when I visited it. I got into several colleges. That was the one I liked the best. It had the best feeling. I like the facilities. I like the resources. I like the food. Right? I've so many times I've had so many students preparing for college essays, and one thing they remember from their college visit was the food. A distinct story I remember was going to Boston, and she could not stop talking about like this sort of open market food court at Boston University or Boston College, right? And just, that's always, it's a great thing, right? Make sure you like what you're going to eat there. You're going to have to eat it a lot, whether it be the local area or, the cafeteria food. Join a tour, information session, ask questions when you do it. And again, sort of show your interest, show your passion for it. Visiting, during the summer is particularly good if, again, you want to go someplace that traveling. Let's say you're on the East Coast, you're looking at California colleges. Summer is a perfect time to do that. But again, regardless, college admissions, academics, extracurriculars, volunteer, internship, you want to make sure that you also have some fun, right? So you should enjoy your summer. It is a vacation, right? It's summer vacation. It's not summer work time. But you do want to make sure you're fighting the brain drain. But fighting the brain drain, right? Overworking your brain is just as bad as underworking it. Resting your brain is as important as using it, right? Common, well-known thing, right? Too much of anything is just as bad as too little. That's the case in medicine. That's the case in many, many things. Too much is just as bad as too little. So make sure you build in some relaxation. Make sure that when you plan it, you have time. Hopefully, right? Especially if you've planned extracurricular activities, volunteer internships, etc. They're fun. They're based on your passions and therefore fun because of it. I going to a music camp or an acting camp or a sports camp, and I'm gonna have fun, as well as pursue a passion. But even if you're doing that, make sure you have time again to hang out with your friends, watch movies. I used to give my students movie lists all the time. I was an old classic film buff, and that was sort of like, hey, here's some things you can watch over the summer. And, it would be both ways, right? They'd give me recommendations as well. And when we come back, we chat about them. Watch some movies, catch up on TV shows you haven't missed, Netflix, etc. But it's a good time to make sure you have that relaxation. So how do we plan on this? How do we put all of this together so that we can create a plan that covers all of this, right? It's a lot, right? I've said a lot of stuff. I spent a lot of time talking about this. There's a lot of material. How do we plan it all together? So the first thing, what must you do versus what do you want to do, right? Every single time you plan your summer, there are the things you must do. Whether it be academics, whether it be, particular family vacations, whether it be I have to take an SAT because I'm a rising senior and I haven't taken one yet. What are the must-dos versus what are the wants-to-dos? Obviously, one of the must-dos is often your summer homework. Try to get the must-dos done as early as possible because it leaves a lot more time than for the want-to-dos. But again, make sure that you identify anything that is time sensitive, whether that be deadlines, whether that be particular, let's say there's an open house at a particular college you want to go to and visit. That would be a deadline. Whether it's obviously, a project that you're trying to, a sports competition, anything along those lines that has a deadline or a particular date that is important, make sure that that is clear and visible on your calendar and your plan. Pay attention to anything that is not flexible. Summer classes, right? Class times, they're done. Versus, something that if you're doing, studying, taking a full-length practice test for an SAT, that's a little bit more time variable. So anything that's not flexible, make sure you plan to the time, etc. Now, build your plan. Get a calendar. Get a calendar or academic planner. Well, probably not academic planner because it's usually the school year, but get a calendar. It could just be a calendar, like 2-month calendar, and start mapping it out. What are the dates? Where are the things you're going? Mark things, write things out, whether it doesn't have to be a physical calendar, it could be Google Calendar, could be any calendar app on the internet. Get something, start writing stuff down. If you need to apply, what are the due dates? What are the things you have to get done? If you're doing CTY, have you taken an SAT or an ACT? What are the requirements you need for any particular programs? Maybe you're applying to an art camp and you need a portfolio. Make sure you have that. Or to a music camp and you need a tape of you playing or singing or anything along those lines. Make sure that you have those down. If there's a competition, like a poetry competition that you want to join, what's the date, right? What do you need to have? Some poetry competitions want certain poems in certain forms or a certain number of poems. Make sure you know what it is you need to have and the date in which you need to have it by. And most critically, most importantly, stick to your plan. Planning fallacy is a huge problem. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Plan as if things are not going to go according to your plan, that you're not going to maybe get into the programs. Even if you have a 100% shot, it's still good to sort of plan possible alternatives. We're notoriously bad as general people at estimating how long something is going to take us to do. We have a project, double the time that it's going to take you to do it. If you think it's going to take you a week to write a poetry, make it 2. Or you think it's going to take 1 hour a week, make it 2. 1 hour a day for a week, make it 2 hours a day for a week. Make sure you build in extra time more than just the time you think it's going to take, because we are horrible at, including me. I sometimes struggle with this as well. Planning out exactly how long things are going to take us. So make sure you have somebody else take a look and help you plan, and take their advice, right? If they say, look, I don't think you're going to get this done by the date you have set, take that into consideration, build in a little bit more time, right? Have someone else, a parent, a sibling, not only help you craft that plan, but make sure you stick to it. Reminders, check-ins, little counseling sessions, if you will, right? Have them help you and give you support so that you can stick to your particular plan, so that you can execute it and you can have the most productive summer as possible. And of course, if you're always struggling, obviously, we can, are more than happy to help you. We, as I've sort of mentioned, right, we do have SAT, ACT boot camps. We have, can obviously help with any of the academics, but, our center directors are also, highly trained at sort of helping map out this college process of creating plans for the college roadmap, for the entire college application process from beginning to end, as well as obviously providing, boot camps, for the SAT, for the ACT, for really any academic support that you may need. So at this point of time, I am going to start taking questions. If you would like to be contacted by a local C2, either to help plan this out, to take a look at some of those tests, and sort of get a good sense of how to plan out the summer, get a good college roadmap, please, in the question box, leave your name, either your phone number or your email address for us to contact you, and your zip code so I can make sure that the correct center, the closest center to you, is the one that contacts you. At this point in time, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A box. I will answer as many of them as I can. How much and how long does the boot camps take? Okay, yes, so that would depend on where you go. C2s usually run about 6 weeks. I don't remember the price off the top of my head. Usually they run 4 to 6 weeks. Some of them last the entire summer. It depends entirely on where you go. They're usually very intensive. There are sometimes, usually, curriculum driven, right? You're given a piece of curriculum for it, and you work your way through that. And so it does depend on where you go. Again, I know C2s are usually 4 weeks. There's usually 2 sessions. There's an early session and then like first month, second month. There are some boot camps from other places that are 6 weeks. There are some that are 8 weeks. There are some that are 2 weeks or 1 week. So it does depend on where you go. Same with the price. Do colleges offer tours during the summer? Yes, they do. That is a flat out yes, they do. Sometimes you do need to call and arrange one, especially during the sort of summertime. So if you're going to visit a college, they will sometimes have, again, like open houses. So do take a look on the college's websites to see if they offer open houses. And a lot of times they have an open house, there are tours attached to it. That being said, though, usually if you reach out to the Office of Admissions, they can usually schedule some form of a tour if you're going to be visiting on a certain date, or they might suggest a date for you to come visit to receive said tour. Does working for a job or a volunteer program take more preference? Working job, doing volunteering is, the answer to that is more about the reasons why, right? So if you're working a job because you have to, for financial, family, whatever reasons it is, that is going to be just as admirable, just as acceptable to colleges as if you were volunteering for the fun of it. Again, it's more about the passion. So if you get a job, a summer job in something that you're really passionate about versus you volunteer in something you're very passionate about, they're about the same. Again, a lot of times it depends on the reason why. Again, if you start early, there's nothing saying you can't conceivably do both. I would not necessarily recommend taking a job that sucks up all of your summertime. But then again, I also wouldn't recommend taking a volunteering program that sucks up all of your summertime as well. How influential are SAT and ACT classes? Oh, very. So if you looked at the college boards, so every year the college board releases like a state of the SAT, same with ACT. Both of them show that they use the PSA to an actual SAT. Both of them show that prep works 100%. That prep works, that students who take, and the more hours that you spend doing it, the better your results are. This information, again, you can just go on the College Board website, you can go on the ACT website, it is there. It is usually like, okay, people who, scored X on their PSAT with 4 to 20 hours, they went up by like this many points. People who did 20 or more hours went up by this many points. And usually the number for 20 or more hours is a lot more. So something like an SAT intensive boot camp will be a lot more helpful often than sometimes studying by yourself, because usually it's just a larger time commitment. It's scheduled, it's clearer. Deadlines for college summer camps. Depends on the summer camp. I have seen some start early March. I've seen some start late February. So it does depend on the summer camp. It depends on the exclusivity of the summer camp. So for instance, if you are looking at, let's say, I'm just going to use like, I think it was Harvard I was looking at. But for instance, like their med-based one has a much earlier application deadline than their general summer camp program. So it does depend on not only what college you're applying to, but also the program to which you want to apply. Online programs to do over the summer. I don't know if I mentioned online programs as much as I mentioned online websites to find programs, but usually there are some online programs as well. You usually tend to want in person more. you tend to get a little bit more customized, a little bit more direct for you. I think it wasn't online programs I kept mentioning, it was online websites for the job application. Oh, unless you were talking about like online classes, like school classes, which you can often take online. You can take like credit accommodation things. There are lots of them. C2, for instance, has a partnership with K-12. But there are other ones as well that you can, take courses that may or may not give you credit, but will at least show passion or interest. I have a passion for music and singing. Do you think starting a YouTube channel would be a good idea? What are some other things you recommend I do with those passions? Okay. There is obviously nothing bad about starting something like that. There are many places especially now, it's becoming much more common for college applications to offer a place to put like a digital resume that includes links to things like YouTube channels or, I apparently can't Pinterest channels or anything like that, right? If you're like big into arts and crafts, that can be very useful. And so there are a lot of times. So yes, by all means, feel free to start a YouTube channel. Feel free to join like a music conservatory program. There are plenty of those around the country. Look local. Music camps, band camps. Any of those will be great. Okay, so let me just, sorry, I'm trying to prepare for college. Preparing for college is a huge, long process that involves pretty much everything we talked about during this presentation. So for all of you, those, again, who want more information on preparing for college, or first of all, this presentation is being recorded. If you use your registration link after starting tomorrow, it will lead you back to a recording of this presentation. But again, if you also need help just in general preparing for college, please, again, feel free to leave your name, phone number, or email, and a zip code so I can direct you to the closest center. And I would be happy to have any of our C2 center directors give you a call, and they can help you sort of talk through sort of your college application process, because everyone's college application process is noticeably different. Our SAT subject test usually prepared through self-study. Not necessarily. You can prepare for those. We do help. There are other times, many books, obviously there are, Barron's, Princeton Review, et cetera, that have their own books. There are courses in various locations that do offer those. The SAT subject test is also a great way to, again, sort of keep your brain fresh, especially if you're doing one based on a previous course. It keeps it fresh in your brain. You can prepare for them. Just like everything else, help is always better. Even when you do get excellent SAT or ACT scores, how come college is not? That is, again, because they are looking at the student as a whole and not just at a series of numbers. So all aspects matter. Your passions, your interests, your activities, who you are as a person, your college essay. It is not just about what you score on SAT, ACT. They are important. Do not get me wrong. But there are tons and tons of people, right? Last year, I think it was 2.1 million people took the SAT, 1.9 million people took the ACT. Right? That's 4 million students, right? Harvard accepts 1,600, right? Even if like 1% of those 4 million got perfect scores, right? That's still a large chunk of people. So it has to be more than just about the numbers. How many hours should a student do volunteering in 4 years? Again, it is not about the number of hours. It is about interest and passion. My school actually had a program that we did 100 hours of community service over the course of our high school. My high school had a program where we did 100 hours. 100 hours is like sort of on the higher end. It's a good benchmark. It comes out to about 25 hours a year. But even you're doing like 20 hours, it's still something. It's one of those things where very much something is better than nothing. There's no should. It again sort of if you're not doing anything over your summer, then obviously, yes, you want more hours volunteering. If the option is sort of volunteering or doing nothing but sitting around at home, it's about how you use your summers and making sure that you're using them fully. What are college essays usually about? So for instance, you can usually find the list if you just sort of type in Common App essays, you can find the list of the Common App essays. Coalition App, any of those, you can find them. There's usually plenty of information on the internet that will allow you to figure out what those essays are about. Fighting off summer laziness. Well, the first thing you want to do to fight off summer laziness is make a plan. Try to pick as many of the items that we've talked about tonight in that. And most importantly, get other people involved and listen to those other people. If you ask your brother or your sister or your parents to help you create a plan, ask them to help you stick to it. And when they help you stick to it, don't argue with them. I know that sometimes as a teenager, a very hard thing. I struggle with it as well. But realize that people do have your best interests at heart. And sometimes, I know sometimes we get very sort of now, what do I want right now, and don't always think about the longer term picture. So biggest thing to help you fight off summer laziness, make a plan and make sure you stick to it and get other people to help you stick to it, and don't fight them when they do. So I have time for maybe about 1 or 2 more questions. So if anybody has any final questions, feel free to pop them up now. Again, if you would like to be contacted by your local C2 to sort of help you with some of this planning, help you, with the SAT, ACT, with volunteering, all that kind of stuff that I've talked about tonight, please, again, leave your name, either your phone number or your email or both, and your zip code. The zip code is very important so that I can make sure that you are connected to the closest C2 center. Okay, specific books that should be read in preparation for the SAT. Just read is pretty much my suggestion. There's nothing specific, just read. Don't shirk, read articles, read prose. So the SAT, for instance, there's 2 science passages in the reading. There's a history passage, there's a founding document, there's a prose fiction. Read all that kind of stuff. So it's just more about reading than it is about any particular book. So college essays, since that is what the major question seems to be of what's left. College essays. Again, college essays are usually about you. There's 3 technically areas. There's usually a you essay where you're talking about yourself in some form or other. The why us, where colleges want to know why you want to go to their school, and a creative one, which is about random stuff. Classic example of that is University of Chicago. You can find samples of good college essays online. I urge you not to copy them. All right? Because I guarantee you, if you can find it online, others can too, and they will also copy it. So if you can find one online, it's a good thing to look at. Don't try to mimic it. In terms of a college essay, the best thing I can suggest for anyone who wants to look at a college essay is to go online, type in common application essay prompts 2019 to 2020, and you can probably find it. They've probably announced them by now. And just look at those prompts, because almost every school that you applied to will ask you to answer one of those prompts. Okay, last question of the night I am going to take. SAT score is, all right, school grades are more important than the SAT score. End of story. School grades are, according to like 70% of colleges, the #1 thing they look at. So it's like 70% of colleges say overall GPA, 60% of those colleges, 60% of colleges says GPA in, college rigor classes is so the #1 thing is the overall GPA. End of story. So prepping for school, making sure you're good in school is much more important than getting a great SAT, ACT score. So if you're struggling in school, that might want to take priority over, trying to get a 15, 1600 on the SAT. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. Again, if you would like to be contacted by a local C2, either to again help you to answer any other questions that I unfortunately wasn't able to get to tonight, please again leave your name, phone number, or email, and your zip code so I can make sure you're connected to your local C2. And otherwise, thank you all. I'll sort of stick around for a couple seconds to write any of that information down. Otherwise, thank you all. Have a wonderful night, and good luck.